Exactly.
I want to go through some leagues that are speculating coming back. The biggest is obviously the Premier League. We should probably start there.
It's where the most money is.
Right. What do you think should happen in the Premier League? Is it that it should come back? Should it wait for all this to blow over and then resume the season later this year, like maybe after the summer? And then we'll talk about how that could affect other competitions like Champions League.
Well, there's a lot of variables that go into it, and I think the best, just to kind of gloss over it, and I think the best way to do it is to cancel the league. I think it's not worth coming back, risking a life or two, and I think England has the second most cases in the world, so it's really not worth it. And if they're going to award, like, I'm the biggest Manchester United fan you're ever going to see, which means we both hate Liverpool with a burning passion. But if cancelling the league means give them the title, even though they haven't mathematically won it yet, but they are very far ahead of everyone else.
Right.
And it's completely different scenario than every other league in Europe. If cancelling the league means giving them the title, then go for it. Because I think it's giving someone a title is much better than having to play out the rest of the season and then whoops, someone got sick. What happens if one of the players dies? One of the players die. What happens if
a family member of one of the players dies?
or just someone in England can't get a test because the players are being tested every week. It's not worth it. And if you have to give someone a league for it, then go for it. I think we've been preparing ourselves for Liverpool to win the league since since the league even started, or probably like December,
or at least since Klopp took over.
Exactly, right? So it was going to happen eventually, and if it has to happen by them being awarded the title, not actually winning it, go for it. I'm never going to let them live it down.
Well, and I'll say this as a City fan who's in second, having won 2 of the last 3 or back to back, I think the bigger injustice here isn't if we were to give Liverpool the title. It's for the rest of the table. Like, that's where my biggest concern is, because I don't like
the easiest decision to make is give Liverpool the title because they're so far ahead.
Right. So, and it doesn't matter. Like, it's one thing if City had to catch up, they have to win all their games, but Liverpool also have to lose all their games.
Of course.
And they've lost like what, one?
One game.
Which is absurd, right? Same as they did last season. So that the bigger injustice for me is the cases of the Sheffields and the Wolves, who are trying to compete for other competitions and are probably their squads and at least the way they play are better than some of the traditional top 6 clubs, at least for this season. And what are we going to do? We're just going to say, well, we'll just honor these standings across the board. There's a lot of lost revenue, for the clubs at the bottom, not to mention.
Of course.
And again, it's
Aston Villa can climb out of relegation. How are you going to make a decision based on that?
Like, if you want to relegate the clubs who are really far down, even that, relegation's a big thing, man. Like,
of course, because you lose. I mean, finishing bottom, like absolutely lost, rock bottom in the Premier League, I think you still get £90 million.
Right, which is more than you win.
Massive.
Which is more than you get for winning the Serie A.
Or the Champions League, which is ridiculous.
It's the TV
So it's a
revenue.
big decision.
And it's a big decision to cancel the season, and I think that's why they're so hesitant to do it, because there's a lot of money on the table. The advertisers, which is, for those of you who don't know, how everybody gets paid, right? That's why the Prem is so big. That's why it attracts the top stars, because it's just it's a snowball effect where they get more money, which attracts bigger players, which attracts more viewers, which attracts more advertisers because they want to pay, and so on and so forth. And so the Premier League has a lot of money to offer. And so if they cancel it, they'd have to reimburse like hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, which could really, bankrupt a lot of clubs.
Yeah, because a lot of clubs go into the transfer windows banking on the amount of revenue they're going to make from the TV revenue. And that's what happened to Leeds a few years ago, right? When Leeds got relegated to the Championship, we haven't seen them since. It's because they were banking on making a certain amount from TV money, which wasn't anywhere near what it is now. And then they didn't get it. And then, they fell back and they still haven't been able to recover. So someone like Norwich or someone who don't have rich owners, it's going to be really difficult to climb back up the Championship if they don't get that money, and then they eventually have to get bankrupt.
And not to mention, like, I've heard this as a possibility as well. If we're ignoring all the safety precautions and we're strictly honoring the footy, and we say, okay, what if we just cancel the season as is and we honor the current standings? However, we won't relegate anyone. Does that mean that you're not going to promote anyone either? Because that is super cruel to those who are, especially in the Championship, they play a lot of games.
Yeah, it's around 46 games a season compared to the 38 in the Premier League.
And what if they were well ahead, right? What if Leeds are top of the table and have almost 100 points, and then you're telling them, sorry, you're actually going to have to play one more year in the Championship?
Exactly, and they've been pushing for promotion for the last 3 years.
Right. which is ridiculous. So then what happens? Well, then we can make this argument. Okay, so let's say the Premier League says, okay, let's accept the top 2 teams, or I guess we can do a playoff for the championship, how it usually is. Now the Prem will have 20, I guess you'd have
25,
22, 23, 25 teams in the league, right? Because no one would get relegated, which means that the quality of the championship will now be worse because you're taking the best teams from the championship and putting them up.
And then relegating 5 the year later.
Right. And then you'd bring up the next ones who are not, the best ones, and those teams will obviously be relegated because they weren't really good enough to be promoted anyway. So, this might sound like a long-winded way of saying there's a lot of complications, so we can understand the hesitance of top league executives not wanting to pull the trigger and cancel the season or resume it right away, because it seems like there's a lot of cons no matter where you go.
Exactly. Right? And of course, there's also the issue of player contracts. I mean, UEFA specifies that player contracts have to end by the 30th of June. So if you're looking to complete the season by the 30th of June, that's 92 games that need to be completed. And that's probably possible. If you can play 3 games a season, that's fine. But what happens if you're not done? Or 3 games a week, what happens if you're not done? And now players, are they free to go? Are you free to sign players? Or like what happens, right? The season ends on the 30th of June, and then let's say you're someone like Sheffield and you have 10 players whose contract end on June 30th, and then are they free to go? Now you have no players, right? So it's such a mess in player loan deals, player contracts, and that they're really difficult to get right. Negotiating contracts takes a lot of time, dealing with agents and everything.
So if you do, let's say, regular... we'll resume the season with regular testing, and sorry rest of the world, but we need our athletes to be tested all the time, so we're going to go forth with this. What happens to a competition like the Champions League? And we can talk about Europa League too, but I really want to talk about the Champions League.
That's where the meat is.
Right, that's where the meat is. You have someone like PSG who advanced into the quarterfinals? The quarterfinals, whose league is now canceled. So now they don't get to practice week in, week out.
Nope.
If the Champions League, I've heard it's going to be resumed in late August, and they're going to try to just squeeze out the rest of the competition in 2 weeks. Right? Well, hold on, because now, you have teams who haven't played since March who are going to be playing for the first time together in the best competition in the world.
Against the best teams.
Against a team who might be playing every week still.
Right.
So they're in form. They have fitness, right? They have all these things.
Players, right?
They have players who could be out of contracts. You have, that'd be France, right? Because they haven't played. What if England hasn't come back yet? Or what if they're just coming back? Are you going to cancel? There's so many problems. And the fact that there's an intertwined competition like the Champions League with the top teams of all these leagues around Europe means that whatever you do affects the next season of the Champions League. Not to mention, you have bans and stuff, and I hate to touch on that as a City fan because of, the ban, but that means, okay, we're going to honor the current standings, so except for City in the Prem, even if we resume the season, what are you going to do at that point?
Which is why I think, to begin with, the decision should have been made by UEFA, right? So you have people like Ajax, and then you have also the Belgian League declared a winner, but they cancelled it. However, the winner was already, there was 1 game left, and they were, 5 points ahead. So they had already won the game, the league. And then you have all these teams that are done, and then if leagues aren't done, then you have a mess of, as you said, intertwined countries and leagues that aren't all doing the same thing. So the decision, for me personally, should have been taken by UEFA in the beginning. Here's how you can determine, as best as we think, determine who plays in the Champions League next year, and then make a decision on how the league goes for you. I think if they told the leagues, all the leagues in Europe that compete for the Champions League or Europa League, here's what we think you should do, and then act accordingly to the rest of the league. So because then you wouldn't have this mess.
Yeah,
but it is what it is.
I think you're right. Yeah, but the fact of the matter is that didn't happen. So now we're left with this problem that we're trying to break down for those viewers. And let's just say this: usually this is a weekly podcast that breaks down what's going on in the world of footy. This happens to be a COVID-related episode where we're doing what we can to make sense of all this. So forgive us for that. But as footy starts to resume, it looks like it might. At least the Bundesliga will. So we'll be bringing you more breakdowns on Bundesliga matches. And then let's see who follows suit, whether it be Serie A. Serie A is a whole other one where it's like 1 point that
Right.
separates the top 3, so you can't really appoint a champion, right?
Absolutely not. No. Even Bundesliga, it's close enough. I think it's, what is it, like 2 or 3 points?
Yeah, it's 6 between first and third,
There you go.
right? Anything can happen. Anything can happen. So maybe in the next episode of the Jersey Wall, we'll do a whole breakdown. We'll do a mock Champions League draft with the current teams that are left, and then break down who we think will win the rest of the Champions League.
Right. Whenever that may come back.
Yeah, factoring in the lack of fitness, the lack of playing time, whether or not the players are still there because they might have run out of contract.
Or move to other clubs, or
There's so many problems,
no
bro.
preseason. Like, if you start in August, that's usually when the leagues start, right? That's usually when the Premier
Right.
League starts. And you players have already been on preseason. Now there's no preseason. Now you're rolling into next season straight away.
Mhm.
Or maybe you push back next season, and then you'd have to push back the season following that, or cancel winter break. Who knows? It's a
There's
big
so many
mess.
problems.